6. Five by 5. 4.
Drei Gläser.
Two. One.
That's no moon.
What's up, everybody? We are live. It is episode 24 of the Hardcore Casual Podcast. He is Jay of F1 Podcast fame. I am Mason of Radio Infamy, and we are the conversation at the two-sunned planet behind you. So, it has been quite a week, Jay.
Yes, it has.
And I actually remembered something that will tie into something later that I forgot to even mention to you before we started the show, sir. As to what I've been doing this week and today, in fact. So I, right now, am only just beginning to be able to see screens again because I had my eyes dilated today.
Oh, man, I had that done in the military like 3 times. And I had to walk around with these gigantic sunglasses on the whole day. It was terrible. So
yeah, I had to have that again today. So the reason that happened and the way that ties into something that we'll be talking about later is because these guys are fake. I don't wear glasses anymore, but I used to. These help with the glare and some blue light and all that kind of stuff. But I used to have horrifically thick Coke bottle glasses, as my dad would call them. I had horrific vision, but 2 years ago I had ICL surgery, which is where they put a lens behind your iris to correct your vision. So I have to go in. They make sure that the lens hasn't shifted or anything like that. So they dilated my eyes so they could see behind my iris. Everything was good. All is well.
Well,
but
good.
I had horrific vision. I mean, whenever I was in the shower, I couldn't read the shampoo bottles. I was like, I couldn't see. So the reason that this ties in is because we're going to be talking about the Fantastic Four. We're talking superhero movies. So whenever I went in last year for my 1-year post-op, my vision was 2015. Perfect vision is 2020. And then as your vision gets worse, it's like, 2025, 2030, 20, whatever, up and up and up. And I was 2015, meaning that I had better than perfect vision after that whole thing. I was kind of afraid after 2 years that maybe that would kind of wear off, even though I still see great. But I thought that was really cool to have that 2015 number, better than perfect vision. And I went in, got my eyes dilated. They did all the checks. And I did lose the 2015 number. I am now 2010 vision. So
wow.
I was told that is incredibly rare and that they had never even seen anyone with 2010 vision, natural or surgical. And I looked it up, and actually 1%, less than 1% of the population of the entire world has 2010 vision. So basically, I'm a superhero. So there you go. That's what I was informed of today.
So 2 things. A, you keep telling yourself that. And B, I have never had perfect or better than perfect. I am 20/40, 20/90. I'm severely nearsighted. Technically,
I was nearsighted
like
as well.
you. One thing about us that's both the same on here is that I don't need glasses to do this show because I'm sitting in front of my computer and I can see everything fine. But I'm so used to having to wear them all day that I rarely take them off. I wear contacts a lot on the weekends, but
so we're two frauds.
Yeah, so it's weird because when I first got contacts, I wore them all the time because I was young, and now I'm older and I like hate messing with them, so I only wear them on the weekends so I can wear sunglasses. But because I will not get transition lenses and I don't like swapping out glasses. But anyway, dude, I'm happy for you, especially since you're going to be able to see your movie tonight, which is great.
Yep.
I'm actually really excited you're getting to see it tonight. Normally I was pretty pissed you got to see F1 before me, but
at a preview event, no less.
Yeah, at a preview event, no less. So Mr. Red Carpet with his preview events and his perfect eyesight.
What can I say? So we have
No regrets.
we have quite the show today, though. The last couple of weeks have been pretty slow on news and events. Not a lot going on. We've got quite a bit going on this week. So we will start off with some news stories, and there's some other news stories that we'll tie into as well. But just want to get some things out there. It has been a rough week for losses in the gaming industry, the media industry. It's just been a really rough one, man. We lost Malcolm Jamal Warner, who played Theo. I believe he was the first death that was announced on like Monday. And we then lost Ozzy Osbourne, passed away. Then Julian LaFay, the father of Elder Scrolls, former chief engineer at Bethesda. He had since left, but he passed away, and then Hulk Hogan was announced today has passed away. So a really, really rough week for losses.
And I'd like to spend a few minutes because of the content of our show talking about Julian, but it goes with saying that, you know, at my age, at 50, Ozzy Osbourne, and I'm a huge rock fan, was a big one for me. And then, of course, 80s wrestling, dude. You know, back when it was the WWF and Hulk Hogan and Macho Man and those guys. And then, you know, coming home from school, I grew up on the Cosby Show, man. You know, all tough losses, and especially tough way for Malcolm to go out on vacation with his kids. So that was tough to hear. But, you know, Julian, dude, like, you know, we were talking about it pre-show, and I'll let you get into it, and then I'll just rebound off of you. But man,
so
lost in the gaming industry.
Yeah, and Julian was only 59 years old. So Julian LaFay was 59 years old. He had his own gaming company at this point in his life, but he actually had only stepped away a few days before passing away. He stepped away something like July 17th or something like that from the position from his company to focus on his health, and it was July 22nd that he passed away. But like we said, he was the chief engineer at Bethesda, the very formative time whenever they came up with the Elder Scrolls and things like that. And he was, like I said, he was labeled as the father of Elder Scrolls. And yeah, he was basically one of the reasons that we have, or that Western RPGs have the identity that they do. The Elder Scrolls and the Fallout series, those two series where you have branching storylines, alternate endings or outcomes and things like that, that really became the identity of the Western RPG, was these multiple paths that you could take, the multiple choices that you could make. And so his contribution to Elder Scrolls, anybody that contributed to the Elder Scrolls or Fallout, he wasn't in Fallout, he wasn't involved in that, but any of those kinds of things, anybody that has anything to do with those obviously had a massive ripple effect in the gaming industry.
And as I told you before the show, I used to not be able to stand Western RPGs. I was a JRPG fan to the boot with Final Fantasy and those things. But one Japanese RPG that I loved was Tactics Ogre by Atlas, which is still a beloved game. And that actually bridged me. Bethesda was my bridge. That bridged me into Fallout Tactics because somebody at work told me, hey, man, if you like Tactics Ogre, you should try Fallout Tactics. Well, then I found out that Fallout Tactics wasn't the first game in the Fallout series. And I started playing. I played Fallout 1 and 2. And then I found Elder Scrolls and played Daggerfall and a couple of those. And then next thing you know, dude, I'm a huge Western RPG fan. So to know that he was involved in a lot of that, my transition to Western RPGs, and Bethesda in general. So yeah, it was a tough loss. That's going to be felt.
Yeah, the gaming industry would not be what it is today without people like Julian contributing to it in the way they did, especially in those really seminal times. So the Western RPG as we know it today has had such an impact on the entire gaming industry. And so later in the show, I'm actually going to review a new game called The Altars. And even in that game, which is sort of marketed as a survival game, you see the DNA of the Western RPG, the branching storylines, that kind of stuff. You see signs of that even in stuff like that today. So,
well,
again,
even what I'm about to talk about in a few minutes, which is, a total conversion mod, still captures the very essence of what makes the Western RPG great.
yeah. So wanted to get those out of the way and kind of make those announcements. But yeah, so we'll go into the things that we've been doing this week. Like I said, I spent my time on the altars. I'll review that here. But I know, Jay, you have been spending, I mean, not just this week, a lot of weeks on this game. And I'm curious and anxious to see what new you have discovered.
So obviously this is what has dominated my time. This is Star Wars Genesis. It is, and I'm going to put the banner up here real quick. That was it's an oversimplification. I know this says it's a Starfield mod list, but this is a total conversion, overhaul, rewrite. There's a lot of people out there when you see comments that'll say, "Oh, it's just Starfield with Star Wars stuff in it," and that is wholly untrue. He's rewritten the storylines, and again, this is one guy. He has rewritten the storylines. He's got factions. You can go Rebel Alliance. You can be Imperial. You can play one on the other. You can be a bounty hunter. You can go for Sith, Jedi, Force powers if you want. He's just released the 8.2 update this past weekend, so I immediately jump on that to get that. And he's added mostly a lot of quality of life. He did some reworks on the story, but now when you leave Coruscant, when you exit in your ship from Coruscant on the ground, he's got Star Destroyers floating in space up there in orbit. And I know right now they're just kind of static. They're just kind of there. But, man, it sets the mood and it sets the immersion for the game. He's constantly working on the planets and getting them in line with what we know as canon information. To give you an idea, here's Mos Eisley. And this is just one small shot where you can see the Dowager
all
Queen.
the times that I've watched you play, and then the segments, the videos that you've shown me. If you had not told me that this was a mod, I would not have guessed that it was a mod. I've even made the comment to you that not only does it look more like a natural game, like it looks more natural as a Star Wars game than Starfield, like using the Starfield engine than Starfield looked using the Starfield engine, and it looks like a more authentic Star Wars than Star Wars Rebels did. Not Rebels. What was the one that Ubisoft
Outlaws?
Outlaws. Star Wars Outlaws. It looks like a more natural. It looks like a more true Star Wars game than Star Wars Outlaws.
And it is, and there's thousands of people already that have commented, "Man, keep it going. You know what you're doing." When you go to the genesismodlist.com website, which is the website for the mod list, he explains in there, and like it felt like we were right there as far as on the same sheet of music. He loved the Force Unleashed games and KOTOR and those games, and wanted to get back to that. And of course, and I'll talk about Starfield here shortly when I'm mentioning this, but man, he captures Star Wars like no one has since stories like KOTOR and since stories like Force Unleashed. The Fallen Order game was good, and so was Jedi Survivor, and I liked both of them. But this gives us a little bit of everything we love about Star Wars. You've got crossover between all the eras, so you're not pigeonholed into, well, I'm stuck in the original trilogy era. For instance, if you like clone armor, if you were stuck in the original trilogy era, you wouldn't have access to that. But now we do, because he's set up. So if you're an explorer, and I've always been an explorer in games, he's got wrecked like clone trooper ships where you can salvage. It's like basically a salvage op, and you can salvage old clone trooper armor if you want to do it. If you're a huge fan of The Mandalorian, like this is, you can walk around this is the way, man. You can get your Beskar, you can collect Beskar fragments and create Beskar ingots to go to the Mandalorian Forge and build your own armor. You can customize it the way you want it, which is crazy. This looks like it's on board the Millennium Falcon, if I'm not mistaken, because I've got the same room. But that's another thing he added. He's added so many ships, and he is slowly written out the Starfield ships. You could still build them if you wanted to, but as far as seeing them on the lots, I'm starting to see Y-wings and TIE fighters and X-wings and Mon Cal, all that stuff. There was even the ship from the beginning of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, that Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan flew into the Trade Federation with. That one's on there now. The Razor Crest is on there. Mando's remastered version of the N1 Nubian Starfighter is on there.
So basically, you're saying that if you are disenfranchised with the current state of Star Wars games and media, movies, this is something that the purist or the true fan could get in and find something.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, and I've told you this before because I was straight up console. I built a PC to do Flight Sim because Flight Sim is an amazing, amazing experience. So is Star Citizen in those. But
I got to say, I am mesmerized by this Imperial lad's hair right now.
Well, yeah, there's that. He's got great hair, but
a lot of body.
The attention to detail. I mean, if you look at this, and I realize this is basically a generic shot of 3 different types of Imperial officers, but the rank cylinders and the pips on the uniform, everything, such attention to detail. If you look back in the back, that's ND5, which is a salvaged commando drone from the Clone Wars era that you can have as a companion, which that dude's legit when you take him. He can shoot. So just like I said, the attention to detail really captures this, and it's one of those things it's hard to break away from. And I got to tell you, if I didn't already have a PC, I would build one to play this. That's how good this is.
Strong words.
Yeah, I would consume ramen noodles for months if I couldn't afford to build the PC to run this. And it doesn't take a crazy PC to run this, but I mean, you're going to need somewhat of some beef behind it, but it'll run on various setups at various levels of detail and whatnot. But Dita Vingy did a great job on this game. So my hats, I have reached out to him to try to get him on here, maybe to talk about it at some point. And I don't know if that'll happen, but I hope he enjoys the free publicity that I'm giving him in regards to this game, because like I said, he has done, and this is one guy that succeeded where Ubisoft absolutely failed in their Star Wars titles. And you talk about, well, nobody likes Starfield. There's a lot of people that won't get this because, and I've read in comments where it's like, Starfield sucks, so I'm not downloading this. And
because like you said, I'm sure they think it's just a reskin.
Well, yeah, there's that. And then I think we've reached a new age of gamers, man. You look at the younger generation, they want instant gratification. So it's all about loot. These people, they're notorious for skipping dialogue, and this is story heavy. And Starfield didn't hit any of those buttons, didn't push any buttons. So when you landed on a planet in Starfield, you'd have your encampment, and then if you wanted to travel somewhere else, there was nothing to do between point A and point B. This game, you're going to find ruins. You're going to find caves that might have stuff that a lot of Star Wars related equipment and gear, fighting against factions from the movies that you know and love. And I think the fact that Starfield failed is the only thing keeping a lot of people from downloading this. And I think a lot of that has to do with Star Citizen. I think people are so disenfranchised with Star Citizen still being an alpha release for him and spending $800 million that it kind of screwed Starfield. Because I did play vanilla Starfield and I enjoyed it. I didn't finish the story, but I played enough to where I knew what it was about and I enjoyed it. Now this murders Starfield without a doubt, and it's Star Wars, man.
See, I have not had a Star Wars RPG. Like, I mean, we were just talking about Western RPGs, right? Branching stories, all that kind of stuff. I have not had a good Star Wars RPG experience since the KOTOR days. And
there's no way
Knights of the Old Republic. If anybody doesn't know what KOTOR is, it's Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. And I've been chasing that dragon ever since Knights of the Old Republic 2 ended, and have yet to find it, have yet to catch it. So it'd be great if this now I don't have a gaming PC, so not yet. Maybe if the partner that we'll discuss after this, perhaps if that goes well, we can get a gaming PC. But right now I'll just have to enjoy it vicariously through your experiences.
Yeah, and I think, let me pull up some. You look at we've reached an age where you've got a lot of these. What is going on here? You've got a lot of these one developer games that are out that are doing well. And of course, I mean, I know I love space and science fiction, and I think I know you do as well.
Obviously, yeah.
And
The two
outside
games
of-
that we're spending time on today are
Yeah.
both sci-fi.
outside of Star Wars, I love Cyberpunk. And not necessarily Cyberpunk the game, just the
genre.
Although I do love Cyberpunk the game, but
They're doing a
But I love-
Neuromancer series, by the way.
right. I think
Yeah.
people forget how great Dark City was too, the movie, and everybody always equates everything with Blade Runner, but Dark City was good too. But another one I play, and it's a completely different vibe, but also by one developer who's calling himself Voids Within, and I've brought this up before, is a game called Dystopica or Dystopica. I don't know how.
Yeah, I remember
pronounce it.
you bringing this up before.
This is a very zen game, and when you think about this, you need to be thinking Sim City or City Skylines. So it's a city builder in a cyberpunk Blade Runner-y Dark City style.
I would dare say dystopian.
Yes, absolutely, very dystopian. But and here I got some stuff from the
See
actual.
what I did there.
Yeah, I saw what you did there. This is an example. So basically, you build regions or you zone an area of the map, and the buildings start popping up and then evolving over time on their own. Again, this is one of those, you come home from work, you don't really want to watch anything, you don't really want to play anything, you want to curl up in a chair with your cat, and if you're a cat guy or a dog guy, and just let this thing unfold. The music, he's got music from every cyberpunk style movie and game that you've ever been
Back to the
involved
gills
in.
with synth.
Yes. Oh, yeah. The synth is legit. You can alter the color and weathering on the game the way you like to make it fit the vibe you're going for. But the other piece I thought was cool, because the guy that creates this is also a huge cat fan, Mason, and this is kind of, getting you into this game, is that the neon signs in the game can be modified using your own pictures. So you can use your own pictures in the game. And this guy's a big cat fan. And just to give you an example, he put his own cat in the game on a neon sign. So you can do whatever you want. And that's really cool to me. I think that's a really neat feature of the game that you don't see in games very often, especially games like this. But yeah, so another good game from one developer I've also brought up many, many times is Spaceborne, which is another space title, but it has, it's its own genre. It's one guy, his name is Burak Dabak, and he's one man,
Rolls right off the
all
tongue.
alone. Yeah, I don't know where these guys come up with some of their names, but yeah, that's definitely his deal. Great game. You can download it on Steam. I wish it was on console, because it does use, I use my Xbox controller when I play it. It has features you've never really seen in a space game. So for instance, you're flying in your spaceship, much like, did you ever play Everspace or Everspace 2?
I did not.
Well, Everspace 2 is the newest one. It's an excellent game. This game has, when you're in your ship, it has definite Everspace 2 vibes. But you can eject from your ship in space while you're flying.
I imagine that is ill-advised, despite being possible.
Sometimes it is, but sometimes you're in a fight, and then the ship you're fighting concentrates on your ship, and you can just eject and fight with your rifles and do some serious damage. But you also can land on planets, and you get combat on the planets as well. I know I brought this one up to your brother, because I know he seems to like space and flying, and definitely was not going the Star Citizen route. So I mentioned this one and X4 to him. But again, another game. This is 3 games by single developers that are doing great jobs. And what kills me the most, you look at Bethesda, gigantic team. You look at the team that did Fallout London and which is a mod team, and they got help from Bethesda. So they had their team, they had Bethesda's dev team, and yes, they created a great mod, but it's got problems. And then you look at these guys working regular jobs and still putting this stuff together, and it blows my mind. It honestly does, and I don't know how else to say it, but other than that. So I don't know what your thoughts are, but yeah, that is crazy.
I find them all interesting. Like I said, currently only if it comes to console will I be enjoying it. That's why I was so happy to see that Alters, or The Alters as it's actually called, came to console. But before we get there, I did want to go ahead and say that I guess kind of a special announcement for us. This is our first like partnership, if you want to call it that. We have Comfort Clothing. So I don't know if you guys are anything like me, but for like the last year, I have continually seen Comfort without the second O. So COMFRT. They do hoodies and sweats, things like that. I would always see it. And now we are actually sponsored. So if you go to comfort.com/hardcore, you can save 15% on your purchase. And currently, they are doing a big summer sale, up to 70% off. And then you can use our coupon code, and it will give you an additional 15% on top of that off. So if you go to comfort.com/hardcore, you'll get this little message here. You can then redeem the coupon. It will present it to you, copy that, put it into your cart, and you're going to get an additional 15% off. They have all kinds of hoodies in different styles and sort of with different things that they're trying to accomplish. They also have, this is the home, so this is their newest arrival that everybody's been talking about that I've seen. It's called the, the flight, airplane mode. That's what they're calling this hoodie with the built-in eye mask. They have the weighted hoodie. They're the home of the 5-pound hoodie where you can buy this weighted hoodie, like you get like a weighted blanket. And I've actually
like a perimeter weighted comforter sort of thing.
Well, yeah, except it's all throughout the lining, and so it's a 5-pound hoodie that you can get. Yeah, and I've actually told some friends and family about this, and they're like, "Oh, I actually already own Comfort," and I'm like, "Oh, well, hey, if you want some more, here you go." And you might ask, is this a Comfort hoodie? It is not. It is not a Comfort hoodie. This is hot off the presses. Mine is in the mail, so I have yet to receive it. But as soon as I get it, I will replace it, because obviously we are all about comfort here, and I wear a lot of hoodies on the show, so that will be added to the rotation. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, comfort.com/hardcore, save 15%.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to using mine that you sent me yesterday. And I also love hoodies. There's probably no other better like sit around gaming and watching movies than a big comfy hoodie, man. I wish we lived in upstate New York so we could wear them year round, but unfortunately it's 115 here today. So
yeah, but I'm running my AC, so I got to have at least a little bit on here inside. I like it cold. But moving on. So yeah, one of the things that I did this week, so it's been a crazy week, but my son had been in Europe for 2 weeks. He just got back. So there was a lot going on. He returned. So we did the show. He came back, and then I spent the week with him. So we actually didn't put out a video. I wasn't able to get a video edited from the previous podcast, but it was actually really nice. I got to spend a lot of time with my son, and I had more time to. Not only did I get to play some games with you and Rob, I also played brand new game, The Alters, which we had discussed on the previous episode, where it was kind of on a lot of gaming media's sort of early lists of game of the year contenders. So I played it. It's also on Game Pass, by the way. Anybody that has Xbox Game Pass, you can play The Alters for free. And so I went ahead and I downloaded it and gave it a shot. So what I thought that The Alters was going to be was not what I got. What I thought The Alters was going to be was Rust with spreadsheets. And that's because it was sort of, it was marketed as this survival title. That's what I kept seeing it listed as, was a survival game. And so all other games in this category, whenever you see a survival game like Rust or something like that, the whole thing is always that there's no story. It's just that you get dropped in and you get to be on the server for as long as you can survive. And then eventually either you win or you die and you start again, you get to a different server, whatever. It's this whole thing. And you just repeat that cycle. So that's kind of what I was expecting. But then we would see video clips and things like that that made me think, hey, there's something more to this. So I finally, I downloaded it, I played it, and yeah, what I got was something far, far deeper than simply a survival game. It was not Rust. It was more like playing The Martian, the movie with Matt Damon, where he gets left behind on Mars and he has to figure out a way to survive until he can be rescued. And that is basically the premise of the game. There is an accident. You are left on this planet. So you're going to a planet with the intention of harvesting this element that we do not have on Earth. So it's incredibly valuable. So they send this vessel to go there to hit this base, and everybody dies but you. You are the only survivor. So you show up, and your first order of business is don't die. So you have to get to the base. Once you get to the base, you then have to get the base running. So this is where some of these resource management aspects come into. So you've got the base is expandable like you would expect. And I thought that would be kind of what it is. That's where I kind of thought the spreadsheets were going to be. I thought it was just going to be sort of maybe walking from module to module and sort of making sure that switches are flipped or things are turned on or fuel is stockpiled or whatever. And there is some of that there, but it becomes so much deeper. And as no secret in the marketing, the whole thing is that you have to make copies of yourself in order to maintain this base. And when that was introduced, what I thought was that kind of like one of the tropes whenever it comes to cloning in sci-fi movies, which I love, not to say that's a bad thing. I love sci-fi movies. I actually just rewatched Moon after playing this game. I watched Moon again. As we say, it seems like every other episode, watch Moon.
Yeah.
But I expected the idea behind it to be you make a clone of yourself. The clone is imperfect. This leads to weaknesses that you will have to work around. Maybe it has a shelf life or right. something like that, and you'll have to work your way around it. And that's actually not how the cloning mechanism works. So what you are making is far different than simply a clone of yourself. This is what gets really interesting and what really drives the story and sort of the existential aspect of the game that really makes you think. And so what these clones actually are is quantum versions of yourself. So whenever you get to the ship and you are given access to the computer so that you can do all this stuff to keep yourself alive and keep the base operating, the quantum computer, you see what they call a mind record. And so you start off and you see all these significant events in the main character's life that you can read little blurbs about along this timeline, all these significant events. So this quantum computer, whenever it comes time to make a clone, you go to this quantum computer, and what you are actually doing is this quantum computer is taking all these calculations. It takes everything that it knows off of your life, as well as the lives of other people that have gone through this process of mapping their minds. And it can use that information to extrapolate an alternate version of yourself. So you go into the quantum computer and you're like, okay, something went wrong. I need a technician. I'm not a technician, and I can only clone myself. I need a technician. So the quantum computer has to find a way to, okay, if you made this choice versus this choice, what choices could you have made that would have made you a technician? That's what we need. So now you bring this technician to life. So it's you, but it's a you that has had different life experiences than you have had. It has an entire memory.
It took the technician route.
Yes. So it has an entirely different memory, personality, sometimes accents, sense of style than you do.
Can I stop you for a second? Because I don't know the original you in the game. And by the way, I got to tell you, I brought up this game last week, and I thought sure as hell the vibe I got from you was that I was going to end up playing this before you. So again, to Mr. Deity, you allowed me not to play the altars. But so let's say the original you is this loose going guy or whatever. I would think if you created a technician, that person was more focused in school, which would have created a whole new set of life experiences. Maybe they didn't
Absolutely.
go out and hang out with their friends as much, and so they're more introverted. Maybe you're an extrovert.
It's
And
100% that way.
wow, okay, that's the vibe
Absolutely
I got
that
when
way.
I saw the.
That is
Okay.
one of the driving forces. So you get into this thinking, okay, I have to manage resources. Then you start this cloning process and you quickly realize I also have to manage people and personalities and emotions and things like that. So you and like I said, everybody has these sort of these different branches from you, but like I said, you have this timeline that you look at initially, and then all of these things are splinters from your initial timeline, but they could be at different points. One of them could branch from your timeline very early, and so you share very few things in common. Others could branch away from your choices much later, and you have made all of the same choices except for one, and that led them down their path.
Oh wow.
And they have a much shorter period of time that they don't share with you. And this leads to vastly different outlooks on life, personality traits. Something like in the timeline that it's covered is that you had an abusive father, and your father was horrifically abusive to your mother.
How was
And
the relationship with the father?
and you as the main character, one of his regrets is that he never had the balls to stand up to his dad. And he actually left once he had the ability and the means to leave to go to school, to go to college. He took that route and he left. And the technician, he stayed and he protected his mom. He stood up to your dad. So he has this take no crap off anybody mentality now, and actually views you as a coward for running away. And that creates a dynamic between you and the technician that you have to get around.
I'm trying to imagine waking up as one of these clones
They cover that too.
and going, you're not me, I'm me.
So
You're the copy. And
That's-
then the realization that okay, so you didn't stay at home to help mom? What the hell, dude?
so
What the hell,
they-
man?
that literally
done.
happens every single time. So every time you make
Wow.
an altar, which you can make a maximum throughout the game. There are more than this. There are more than
Hold
this,
on,
but
I'm gonna
it'll take
start
multiple
this
playthroughs to
download
get this.
now.
But yeah, you'd have this conversation with every time that you make an altar. They wake up and you have to. They're always very confused, and you got to be like, "Hey, so hi," and obviously they wake up. They recognize themselves talking to them, and so you have to go through this whole thing of okay, how are they going to handle this stressful situation of waking up and
Right.
looking at themselves? Then you have to quickly figure out, okay, what's their personality like? How can I best explain this in a way that will not upset them or make the matters worse? Because they have these emotions, and the more that they get upset or bothered, depressed or angry, that makes them work for less time, which obviously makes it more difficult to resource gather. So they factor that bit into the gameplay and make it a mechanic every time that you wake up one of these clones. And speaking of the gameplay is so much more than I expected, because like I said, it's labeled this survival game, and there are survival elements to it, but I would not call it a survival game because it is nothing like the other games that are in that category. It's not Rust, it's not Conan, it's not any
Ark.
of these things that do that. There's resource management, there's weather and surviving weather, managing power and fuel and tension and food, all these things.
So it's non-combat related survival, and not survival in the strictest sense, unless you're telling me you get into combat with your own clones.
So,
'Cause
not to
that would
spoil
be
anything,
awesome.
but there is all of that. There is combat.
Okay.
It's not like the deepest combat. You're not gonna have. It's not gonna be Borderlands
Right.
4. You're not gonna have a limitless number of guns at your disposal or anything like that. But there is combat and there is exploration. I would label this more of an exploration RPG than I would a survival game, because key to your survival is your exploration. So the base that you are on is mobile, and the main game happens in sort of 3 acts or 3 journeys that you make. You move the base 3 times, and each time you move, you have to start over with a completely different terrain than what you just had. So you move, you now have to find resources all again. So you go out, you make these, you go out and explore, you make discoveries, and then you have to establish mines or something like that. You have to excavate these elements. You have metals, you have organics, you have enriched materials, you have minerals, things like that you have to mine for. But you have to discover those deposits, and then you have to find the best spot for your machine to go in to get that. Then you have to connect. This is where it kind of starts to feel like Death Stranding. You then have to connect that machine to your base, and you have to fight the terrain to do it, because sometimes maybe you access this area to find this mineral deposit.
Right.
You accessed it through a tunnel, but you connect the machine to your base via these towers, and the towers can't, they can't connect because they're too high. They can't go low enough for the tunnel to get it through there. So you have to find a way that's not the way that you got there. You have to find a way to connect these back to your base. And so in that way, it starts to feel very much like Death Stranding with some of that. So there's all kinds of elements here. Oh, go ahead.
I have to ask, is it possible to create a clone you didn't need?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So they're just walking around the ship. They don't really have, because you accidentally created the wrong skill set clone. Or can you later find, do they die? Is it possible for them to die without spoiling anything? I have so many questions.
Without spoiling anything, I will say that all of these have been factored into the game. And like I said, you can have a maximum of 7 altars that you make throughout one playthrough, but there are more altars than that. So in order to experience all of the altars, you would have to play the game multiple times. But one thing, and this is very much where it takes inspiration from Disco Elysium, and that is, in Disco Elysium, you would have these thoughts that you could ponder, right? You would have something would be said in a conversation, and it would make you had the option to make your character think about this thought. And if he thought enough about this concept, he could apply what he learned to future conversation trees. And that happens in altars, where each altar, ultimately, if you get an advanced enough relationship with them throughout a playthrough, you can learn a lesson from them. And that lesson will open up a conversation tree that you wouldn't otherwise have had, or a choice within conversations that you wouldn't otherwise have had. And then once you beat the game, if you start to play over, even if you there's no game plus, you don't get to start. You have to start over with resources and everything, but you can choose different altars. But the lessons that you learned from previous altars, those still stay. And so you can still apply the charisma that you learned, or the assertiveness that you learned, or reliance that you learned, and those different options, those will show up to aid you in future playthroughs as you go through it. So that's the sort of the basics of kind of the exploration element, the resource management element, and then of course all of the different modules that you create. You have to have, to make this module, you have to have this many metals, this many organics, this many materials. You have to make that. And then you also have to survive storms in the area. You have these things that you don't need otherwise, but then if a storm hits, you need these really bad. And so you have to make sure those are standard. So you've only got one workshop. So now you've got to make sure that all these things can be kept up with. And so you're now prioritizing what's being made. Do I need this thing? Do I need more pylons to connect my mining machines to my base? Do I need more of those more desperately than I need radiation filters for the base or something like that? You also have to manage food, that kind of thing. And it all sounds very overwhelming, but it's introduced in a great way. And I have not gotten this way about a game in a long time. On the exploration note, I will say this planet is completely foreign. It's unlike anything we have here, and so there will be anomalies that you will have to contend with. I won't say much more than that. There's just these weird
please
things
don't.
that you will run into. But I will say that one of those anomalies is time distortion fields, where you walk into it and the time goes faster than if you're not in it. And I will say, it's been so long since a game has done this. This game was basically a time distortion field for me, because I would be like, okay, let me just play a little bit more. And then I would look at my watch to check the time, and 4 hours had passed. It was because you get so engrossed. And I know why it is, because it's broken into days. It's not like this. And it is meticulously broken into days. So it's not like this thing where it's like, oh, the sun's out. Okay, we'll wait. The sun will go down, whatever. You have a clock. You see, like, the clock matters, because people work from 9 to whatever, and that changes. The amount of time that they will work depends on how happy they are or how content they are. And so you are very aware of the clock at all times. And so you have 24 hours each day, and you have to go to sleep. You have to go to sleep, otherwise you can't. You work slower, or you can't work at all. So the sleeping is very important. So you have 24 hours in each day to work, and you cannot save while you play. It saves every morning. The game auto saves every morning, and that's it. So you wake up, and then that game saves. So if you do something that day and it doesn't get saved, it's gone.
Real quick, because and make sure you hold your thought, but the time distortion field, you go into it, you said time goes faster. Does whichever one of you, and I'm assuming it's you and not the other yous, do you come out older?
No,
are you aging?
You can see how much time goes faster. Just like hours go by quicker. So instead of running through it and it taking a few minutes, you might run through it and it takes an hour and a half, but not to the extent of years or anything like that. So it is not a crippling mechanic.
Because I got to tell you, bro, that would be crazy if you came out and you were 10 years down the road.
Well, so it's one of those things, but it is a thing, though, that you have to think about, because it's like, okay, well, I have a clear shot to connect these pylons to get to my base from these resources that I'm mining, but I can't run it through a time distortion field because the material won't flow through it. So you have to find a way to get around that time distortion field. But so I would not wake up, but I would play this until 3 a.m. on multiple occasions, because since it has this day structure where you wake up, you complete the day, and if you want what you've done in that day to count, you have to go to sleep so that you can wake up the next morning. And then as soon as you wake up, you're like, well, it's kind of like reading a book, like a page turner, right? Where it's like, you have these definite sort of signifiers of time, right? So in a book, you're like, I can just read one more chapter, because books are in chapters. So you can be like, I can read one more chapter. So this has it where it's like, since it does this thing where it's days, each day has 24 hours. And this is basically the standard 1 minute is 1 second. 1 hour is 1 minute. So it's basically 24 minutes, maximum of 24 minutes. But if you do something, that can also speed up time. Anyways, so if you wake up and it's like, oh, I need to talk to this person, I need to talk to this altar, or let me just do that real quick. I can do one more day. I can do one more day, and then I'll be done. And you chain that together 10 times, and it's 3 a.m. on a work night, and you're exhausted.
I gotta say this because I wasn't under the illusion that there was nobody else like what you're just saying. But literally, so basically at the same time you're doing this, I'm playing Genesis, and some of the stuff you just said, I literally said to myself, I'm like, okay, I just finished this mission. I'm going to fly to the planet for the next mission. I'm going to save and go to bed, or I'm going to quit and do something else. Fly there, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get off the ship and see what's outside the ship. You get off the ship, and I'm like, okay, I just scanned the terrain, and now there's something out there as a new ecological outpost.
But if it's not far, I could make it there in like a couple of minutes.
It's 500 meters. I'm going to walk out there and see what's out there. And I'd get in a firefight with some Trandoshan bounty hunters that wanted Wookiee pelts or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to fight these guys off. And then there's a Sith it's a Sith outpost. Maybe they've got armor or weapons I haven't seen. So I'm thinking about you playing the altars and I'm like, shit, it's going to be another one of those. It's going to be a time sink is what you're saying.
Oh yeah. In the best ways. In the best
Yeah.
ways, it is an addictive
Well, I didn't
loop.
mean it in a bad way, but
You know,
yeah.
and like I said, I think it's so addictive because it has that structure of like if you're just playing a typical game, there's no definitive stopping points, right?
Right.
But if you already kind of know what the stopping point is, it makes it easier to fool yourself into being like, well, let me just get there and then I'll stop. Everything will be fine. And then it just goes on and on and on. But so yeah, I stayed up several nights until 3 a.m. playing this game.
Yeah, I got to tell you, the last game that captivated me like that before Genesis was Mass Effect 2. And I know we've brought that game up 9 billion times.
It's one of the best games of all time, RPG or otherwise.
I'd get a ship full of fuel and a ship full of probes, and there was no stopping the play after that.
So another thing that I would say about the altars is just the themes that it tackles and the depth of characters and scenarios that it covers is something I did not expect. You go into this, and obviously it's dealing with cloning. It's dealing with this quantum theory or quantumly theoretical, whatever concept of if you had made these other decisions, what would it have been like? How would that have played out? But then it's like, well, are these memories, since you're making a clone and the quantum computer is putting these memories in their head, are these memories fake? Is this just a memory that's based off of stats that this computer is running? Or is this something that is, happening in a parallel universe and we've tapped into it? Are these memories that these people have, are they real? Are the people that they remember, the people that they had relationships with, are these people real? Or was it just ones and zeros?
Anytime somebody brings this shit up, I always quote Qui-Gon Jinn and say your perception determines your reality.
That is something that was also referenced in the game.
I got to tell you, so just hearing you talk about this game, not only am I getting a lot of Martian vibes, and you're right,
100%,
because Matt Damon's character Mark Watney, we saw many different Mark Watneys. Maybe they weren't clones like the altars, but there was more than a dozen different Mark Watneys in that movie and in that book as well. But I'm seeing some strong Matrix vibes in this because your perception determines your reality, and a little bit of Altered Carbon.
There are so many influences in this game, both in media and other games. It's crazy. And the narrative, like I said, it focuses on some pretty heavy topics and some pretty big ethical dilemmas that you would not have expected to be confronted with. And you have to make big decisions. So the branching, whenever you create an altar and their experience is different from yours, they refer to that as branching. So they say, oh, we need to do another branching. So that's referred to as branching in there. But there are so many branching narratives here where your decisions, the decisions that you make, can go so many different ways. And this is what's going to make it so replayable. One, the fact that you can't get all the altars in a single playthrough. You'll want to know about the other altars that you didn't get to play before. And then also some of the decisions that you make, you'll want to know, well, what if I had done this? And some of the decisions that you make, there will be somebody that's upset, somebody that's happy. Some of the decisions that you make, there's a clear right answer, a clear wrong answer. Some decisions that you make, everybody will be happy. Some decisions you make, no one will be happy. And some decisions, there's no good answer to. You have to select from one of multiple bad options where there's no good answer, and you're going to feel like crap no matter which way you go. And it really makes you think about these ethical choices, and you develop this relationship with these altars, and that also makes you think about how it kind of makes you think about your own life, because you see how different these altars are from you, the player or the character that you are playing as. And then you can kind of think back on your own life and think like, man, what would other choices I have made? Where would that lead me? And it really becomes like this kind of existential experience whenever you play the game. And I will say there's also twists in the game that some of them I did not expect. Some of them I did. There are also twists that I expected that did not actually come to pass. Maybe that's just me because I love the genre and I'm so used to watching movies like Moon and things like that. There are some things that I expected to happen, some reveals that I expected to see that were not the case, where I had been playing the entire game thinking this is what I was working towards, and that was not the case. So I think if you're a fan of the genre, I think that you're still going to see things. It's not just going to be jaded. I think it's still going to throw some things at you that you did not expect to see coming.
Well, and I was talking to a coworker this morning. I was telling him you played through it and that I was excited about giving it a go myself. And I was like, I don't know. And I ended up talking about a bunch of things that I wanted to see in the game, but I equated it because I think one of the coolest things in life is the effort to become self-aware and of not only yourself, but your surroundings, and thinking, even if this game doesn't do what I'm about to say, it's still a cool case study on internal struggle, conflict, and resolution in that maybe I look at my life and I was like, man, I wish I would have done this. Even if it's something simple, like when you look at the cover of the altars and all of them look different except for the face. I can think of many times in my life, man, I wish I could have long hair. And I never have in my whole life. But maybe an alternate version of me that made a different decision. Hey, that's what he did. Right. And there was times that I wished I was more conservative. And then times I wished I was more free with what I was doing. And I'm wondering if all those, even if they don't meet my expectations, that I see that and go, oh my God, that's exactly what I would have done.
There was even one that it just sort of blew my mind because of how much thought went into this scenario. Kind of like what you're talking about here, because you see some of the altars deal with things that you didn't expect to be problems. So one of them was a miner. One of the altars, okay, well, because each of them, so you're basically creating them for their benefits. Yeah, you're creating them for their benefits. So this guy can get you resources faster because that's what he does. Okay. And so you make him, but now, again, this is a quantum reality or whatever. This projected things and the memories are put into him, but it's clones of current used DNA. And they're creating the body based off of that with these memories. And this guy in his life had lost an arm in an accident. And so whenever you bring him back, it's a clone of you. So he has an arm again. So he wakes up and he now has an arm. And you would think, oh, well, that's going to be great for him. And it's not. It's not great for him. That's a very jarring. That's a very jarring thing to happen.
His life had adapted to life with one arm.
Yeah, and that had become a part of who he was, And so it's things like that you would even think would be beneficial, that has these really deep impacts on some of these characters. And it becomes this wild thing where you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. And that happens so many times in this game. So, like I said, to call it a survival game, I think is such a disservice to what this game truly is. I would certainly call this more of an exploration RPG with survival elements to it. And
I told my buddy today, I was like, I feel like to me that the survival is the ethical dilemma of dealing with different versions of yourself.
Well, and so I guess it should go without saying, I could not recommend this game more highly. If it sounds remotely something in your wheelhouse, if it sounds like it would be like you would find any of these aspects interesting, I would 100% recommend you play it, because everything that it tries to do, it does so well. And the combat, I would say, like, combat's not it's not the focus of the game. So combat is the one thing
Yeah,
that's kind
I
of
didn't think it
thrown
would
in
be.
to accommodate, but in the service of these other things. But everything else, it's done so well. And I'm not going to say that the resource management is not tedious. You actually do have a slider. You can make it far more tedious if you wanted to. But as with any resource management game, the further you get in, the more research you do, the more development that you have on your technology, that will become easier as you go through. You do this initial really tough grind on resources, but that will become easier as you go along. And the focus becomes the choices that you make and learning about your alters and managing the people that you've created. And I will say this, it's a really big part of the conversation. It's going to tie into the next story that we talk about. Actually, that's how I thought this would tie into the next story. But and I don't consider this a spoiler because I'm not going to tell you the context that it's set in, who said it, and there's a lot of people that will play this game that will never even have this conversation. But
Yeah,
one of the things that they pointed out in this conversation was it was basically said that a mistake, because that's one of the things that you talk about a lot. A mistake. Was this a mistake? Because obviously you're dealing with these the results of all these different choices. And like I said, you can see on the quantum computer exactly what choice it was, where it deviated, what choice you made, and how
from
your
who
life
you
went.
were.
And you see what choice they made, and you can look at their timeline the exact same way and see all the events that happened in their life after that point that didn't happen in yours. But so it can kind of make you think like, okay, what mistakes were made? And this conversation basically boiled down to a mistake that has positive consequences is not a mistake. And at first it sounded like a cool thing to say, but the more I thought about it, the deeper it kind of became. It was sort of like this ticking time bomb in your brain that the more you thought about it, the more true it became, where you think of these things as mistakes that you've done in your own life. And then you realize other things that, well, you know what? Maybe I wouldn't have done this if I hadn't have made that mistake, or I wouldn't have met this person if I hadn't made this mistake, or this or that. And then it becomes, well, if that's the case, and these are things that you find important to you, was that even a mistake then? Or was that just the way that it needed to be? And that was a thing that, so whenever I rolled credits on this game, it left me thinking about my own life, my own choices. And then immediately, as soon as I rolled the credits, thinking about that, the first thing I did was I started the game over again and started another round to do more alters, different choices, and just go it again. So,
well, dude, isn't that the purpose of? To me, that's the purpose of any media, is that you reach a point where it's like, how does this affect my life, and what meaning did this, or what purpose, or what point or lesson did this have on my life? Because as we always say, life imitates art, art imitates life, and whatnot. But I do want to cap this off with saying, I know we haven't developed a review format for us yet. So, I guess we'll just go based, on a scale of 5 or whatever. We do need to work on getting that. I started thinking about doing, if the game's hardcore, we give it controllers. And if the game is casual, we give it a rating based on coffee cups. But where would this game fall? Is it hardcore? Is it casual?
Well, so whenever I came up with the name Hardcore Casual, it's because I am hardcore about being casual. Right. It's like, I said, like, I love video games, but I'm not throwing the controller at the TV screen. I love movies, but I don't rewatch the Criterion Collection every year. Like I am like,
nobody does.
Exactly. So I would just say that this game it's not a game that you can play while you listen to a podcast. It's a game where you have to pay attention. Well, there you go. That is the history of the name. Yeah, the hardcore casual. Yeah, it's just because there's a lot of things that I love, and then Jay's the same way. So there's a lot of things that we are absolute fans of, and I am as hardcore a fan as you can get, but I'm not getting angry about it. I'm not throwing the controller. I'm not getting bent out of shape, anything like that. So people might say that's casual. Then, like, well, then I'm hardcore casual. Then
there you go, and that's all you need to say.
But Yeah, this game though, I don't ever want to do like numbers, but I can say, do I recommend it? Yes. Do I strongly recommend it? I could not recommend this game any more strongly. If this
Good.
sounds like it's anything even similar to what would be of interest to you, absolutely play this game. It is. It also goes by quick. So there is an absolute timeline that you are working
But
against. You
sometimes
don't.
that's good.
Well, and yeah, exactly. No, yeah, it's great, especially
Yeah.
because the clear idea behind this game is to allow you to do it multiple times. And so you don't want to, if you spend 60 hours on a game, the first thing that you do after you beat it is not like, let's do that again, you know? So, but if you can do the game in 10 hours, maybe you can. So I don't know. I didn't look at how long it took me to go through the thing, but, and it can actually vary because you continue to move the base, and the thing that makes you have to move the base is that the sun will rise. And when the sun rises, it's not a good thing here. You can't deal with that. So
Yeah.
you got to get out of the way of the sunrise, and then you outrun the sunrise a little bit, and you have a certain amount of time that you can wait. But you don't know how long that time is. You don't know how it'll let you know, oh, the sun's getting closer. And then once it's to a certain point, it'll say like, okay, this many days to sunrise. So, and I will say this, no spoilers, but I will give you a pro tip. And that is stay everywhere except the very first location. The very first location, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have this sort of thing. You can get out of the first location as quickly as you want. Everything after that, the actual journeys, do not leave those locations early. If you can, don't. Because you'll probably be able to leave them early. But you will not get everything that you can get out of them. I'll just say that. Stick around as long as you can. Then whenever you need to leave, leave. But don't leave early just because you can, because you'll be missing out on some stuff. But yeah, I recommend it. Absolutely recommend it.
I will tell you, when you talk about, you're doing the replay and making different decisions. And again, I want to go back because there's no game that does it like this, but Mass Effect put me on a rhythm where every game I played after it that was even remotely like it from a decision and morality standpoint, I would do one playthrough where I was like Mr. by the law, every positive answer I could give, not leading with violence, trying to be diplomatic.
And then I would
do a playthrough where I was complete asshole, and like to the point where I'd pick the asshole decision and I'd go, oh. And then I did a playthrough where I played it if it was me, because we're not going to be all wholly good and we're not going to be wholly evil, right? So it's like I would make I'm like, what would I do right here? I would do this one. And sometimes that was the Paragon decision, and sometimes it was the Renegade. And it made this weird character that I loved, man. That was always my favorite playthrough.
Yeah, and the one thing that made it easier to do that on Mass Effect than other games is because Mass Effect, even whenever you did the bad option, you are still doing it for the good reason. You're still moving towards this greater good. So you're just being an asshole. You're not being an evil dick like on Knights of the Old Republic, where you're
I did that with Knights of the Old Republic
people off buildings. Yeah.
Yeah, there was I remember by the end, you remember KOTOR 2 had the thing where your skin would start to be affected by being dark.
That was the thing.
Yeah, I looked like a demonic bastard by the end.
Same
of
thing.
KOTOR
And then on Mass Effect, so when I would always make it a point, I wanted to unlock everything on every Mass Effect. So then, and I would do that except for one thing, and that was the computer, where if you made all the bad choices in your face, like where they put you back together, the scars would start to glow red. And eventually you can unlock this upgrade on the computer where you can make that go away. I just never unlocked that. I was like, nope, I want to keep this. I earned these scars.
Yeah, it looked like you had lava like trying to seep out in your. Yeah, that was pretty cool, man.
So I kept that. But yeah, so in again, to wrap up, Alters is a phenomenal blend of so many different genres. To call it a survival game is an absolute disservice. Go play it. If you have Game Pass, you have no excuse to not play this. You can play it on consoles. If you have Game Pass, you can play it for free. Go check it out. It's worth your time. It's not a huge time commitment, but you will find yourself, I would say, involuntarily committed to that time, because it is a time slip, dude. You will you will snap out of it and hours will have gone by. It's like that planet in Interstellar. But the way that I wanted. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say while you were running your flapper during the review that I started my
Ouch.
download from Game Pass.
Oh, nice. Nice. Well, and one thing that would make that even better is if you did that with a hoodie from comfort.com/hardcore, which you can get for
Absolutely
15% off. But in sort of the theme of the altars, where, hey, these mistakes, if these mistakes have positive consequences, were they
Right.
mistakes? I submit to you Exhibit A. The Outer Worlds 2. Now, I'll get to that. I'll tie that to this here soon with a good friend of the channel. But let's just cover the news. So there was an update with the Outer Worlds 2. So Xbox had previously announced that all of their first-party games going forward would be $80. And that was one of the things that rattled the industry, right? We had them doing 80. We had Nintendo announcing that they were going to be doing 80 for some of their games.
With frickin' Donkey Kong. Okay, I'm sorry. I won't do that rant again.
So
yeah.
it turns out I misspoke on Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong was 70. So I didn't mean to anger the Donkey Kong loyalists out there. I like Donkey Kong too.
I do. I'm angering Donkey Kong loyalists out there.
Send your letters to Jay.
Yes.
But
give me the hate.
But Xbox doing this $80 push was one of these things that started this debate, and we'll get into some things. I'll read this first, and then we'll pick it apart and go into conspiracy level theorizing here about what I think might have led to this.
Right before you read, can I tell you that because I hate flip floppers, literally, even though I don't want to pay $80 for a game, when I first saw this, I was like, cowards.
No, I thought the exact same. I thought this makes Xbox look even worse. But
yes, but go ahead.
So starting off, the Outer Worlds. So they announced on Twitter, and again, this was one of Xbox's first party games, previously announced to be $80. So they said, "Dear Galactic citizens, we have received your SOS via Skip Drone about the pricing. As an organization devoted to making sure that corporations do not go unfettered, we at the Earth Directorate have worked with Redacted to revise the price of the Outer Worlds 2. While this will not bring peace to the galaxy or even your local colony, we assure you all that we are here to fight for all colonies in every way that we can, from the office of the Director of the Earth Directorate." And it is announcing that the price is now $69.99. It is now $70 instead of $80. So first of all, I want to commend them for their in-character response,
Yes,
and I wish that
course.
more studios would do this kind of thing. It's funny.
Yes.
But now, on the other side, I think this makes Xbox look worse. But before we get too far into that, the way that I connect this to every mistake, if it has positive consequences, was it really a mistake? That makes me think of our good friend, Randall Pitchford.
Oh, God.
As we have discussed
Oh, God.
many times here and made many videos about, and still has not returned my emails. Hit me up, Randy. Would love to talk to you. I think we've been fair. We've had our fun, but I think we've been fair. But I swear to you, I truly believe that were it not for Randy, this would not have happened. Because I think, in the industry, obviously not everything is reported, but I think anybody that's in the industry, they know the plans of everybody. Do you think it's a miracle that the Xbox and the PlayStation release at the same time every generation cycle, that they've just synced generations organically from hanging around each other in the same office long enough? No, that's not how this works, right? It's like industry stuff. Everybody knows what's going on behind the scenes. And also, Grand Theft Auto 6 was supposed to release this year before they delayed and into next year. And then we had the whole thing with Borderlands 4. So what I think is that Xbox went ahead, announced the $80 price change, got it out of the way, and thought, okay, now we're going to have everybody else that they've been planning to roll these $80 games out will be padded. And then everybody saw what happens whenever Xbox did that, whenever Nintendo did that. People start getting gun shy. And then the first one to test it was going to be Borderlands 4, because GTA 6 could have done it, but GTA 6 they delayed it. They're going into 2026, so they're out of the conversation now. So all eyes were on Borderlands 4, and then Randy just botched the PR on this handling the entire way through. It was a comedy of errors. It was horrific as far as how he looked to the public. And even though I believe, and we gave him a lot more grace than any other outlets out there, I believe that he really did want to do the best thing for people, and that he really did have limited control. But anyways, ultimately, it was this mess that just became a PR nightmare, to the point that, as we correctly predicted, 2K just didn't want to deal with it. They're like, okay, they went ahead and said, nope, it's $70. They didn't want that smoke. And then that went away. And now all of a sudden, then nobody else stood up. Nobody else jumped up, raised their hand, and waited for the hammer to swing down on their head. And here we are. Now we have Xbox backing down on their commitment. Now they've said it's not just the Outer Worlds 2. They said that all of their first party games that release in holiday 2025 will be priced lower. None of them will be $80. So they're going back.
I want to take a different angle, although I think it's probably a little bit of both. And we've had a year where you had Sandfall Interactive, I think that's right, that did Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, yep. And you had 11-Bit Studios, which did the game you just played, The Altars. We've had a lot of, and already I discussed tonight my love of super small developers down to one man all alone. But the influence of what those groups have been able to do without charging even $70, by the way, I feel like that too is starting to take its toll, because gamers are starting to recognize that. I've found myself reading a lot more comment sections than I normally do. I'm not a big comment section guy. I watch the video and move on. But reading these, almost every single comment stream has one person say, yeah, but look what so-and-so did with 5 people. Look what so-and-so did with a $39.99 game.
With a box of scraps.
Tony built this in a cave with a box of scraps, right? So I feel like that is starting to hit home with some of these big developers.
Well, it's like we said with Borderlands 4, when Randy, one of the things that he said was like, hey man, we're spending so much more money, like twice, I think it's like twice the amount of money into Borderlands 4 than they put into Borderlands 3. And granted, that's impressive, but also we didn't ask for that. We didn't ask you to do that. We didn't demand that be a thing. We've been very clear about the things that we wanted. We thought that the storylines, or the story at all, just wasn't there anymore. There wasn't any story anymore. The different gameplay elements just didn't work. The humor that you lean into, all these, we were very clear about things that we wanted, and none of those required double the budget of Borderlands 3. It's this thing where it seems like a lot of these development houses, or especially these bigger publishers, they think that the answer to any problem is throw more money at it. Or like the MCU. Oh, these things are tanking, throw more money at it. And it was never about the money, right? Like this is just that's not how you deal with it. Like, we're telling you explicitly what our problems are, and you just keep throwing more money at it. And that's not where it's at. So I'm glad though that this is coming down. I do think that we owe Randy. So, Randy, go on, talk to us. We'd like to give you your props. We'll give you your flowers. But I think that we owe Randy and his horrific handling of PR.
Yeah. And the thing, even if he came on the show, I would commend him on not only the longevity of the Borderlands franchise, because nobody thought that, at first, I'm sure nobody thought they would make it as far as they have.
See, System thinks Randy as well.
When we look at Borderlands 1 and how good that story was, which was the only reason it drove us to Borderlands 2, and Borderlands 2 was a good series, or a good sequel. I felt like the pre-sequel hurt a little bit, because of its length, which it was short.
It's also a different developer.
And its story was a little weak. And then Borderlands 3 had a story. My problem was it didn't have a story. My problem was that story was so disjointed and had too many different plot lines.
Well, it also all that you got of that story was a brief cutscene every time you jumped a planet, and that was it.
Right, and that was it. That's all you got. And taken on the whole, if you're one of the people that doesn't give a shit about the story and all you're there for is the bajillion guns that they always market, okay, that's fine. Sorry, I'm not that guy.
I will say, speaking of, just to go back to alters real quick, if you're one of these people that skips dialogue options, doesn't care about the story, you probably shouldn't play the alters. Like, there's some really fun gameplay elements there, but you won't get it. You won't get anything out of it nearly as much as you would have if you're that. So I will say that
probably
little
don't want
caveat.
to come on here and admit you skip dialogue options in my face.
But I don't know. So, but given everything that Xbox has going, I think that this makes them look bad, because I mean they've just had this string of things where they make a decision and then they go back on it. And like you said, I like this decision. I'm glad it's going to be cheaper. The $80 thing is crazy, but this just makes Xbox look like they have no idea what they're doing. This is coming off of the massive layoffs at Microsoft and Xbox and the various developers. It's really making Xbox look incompetent, or exposing them for being incompetent. I
was going to say they have forced themselves in a position to where they're letting the inmates run the asylum, and we're the inmates. They've fallen back on their haunches so far that they kind of have to do what we want them to do now, or they're going to lose everybody, or at least they feel that way.
I don't know. But also, this is something that they cover in the alters. It's like nobody likes a flip-flopper. At some point, even if you're making the wrong decision, it's better to go 10 toes down and stand on business on that wrong decision than it is to flip-flop back and forth. So
yeah, absolutely.
Even if you're wrong, it's going to make you look better to just be like, nope, this is our decision. This is where we're at.
Not to mention the fact that Outer Worlds has now screwed every other game that's about to be announced that thought they were going to go $80. They're like, okay, now we're going to be the bad guys.
It was a domino effect, dude. So GTA was the great white hope for these developers that wanted this $80 dream. GTA 6 was that hope. Then GTA got backed up to 26, and then all the weight went to Borderlands 4. Unjustly so, I would add. All that weight shifted to Borderlands 4. And I bet Borderlands 4 would have been $80 had GTA been on track for this year and pre-orders went live, and I bet they probably would have done 80. Now I'm not even sure that GTA 6 is going to go 80. We've talked about this before. We did a whole segment on it, where if they were smart, they would stick where they are and sell a bajillion copies of this thing, and you have a larger installed player base.
Not to mention they're going to make their money. GTA is going to make their money on residual cost anyway, which is going to be shark cards and what I'm guessing is going to be packages of clean license plates, because that's going to be a thing.
Yeah. So that's where we're at on that. I just found it to be very interesting that Xbox is going back. It makes them look weak. It makes them look like they don't know what they're doing, but it only helps the Outer Worlds 2. They get away with this because they didn't have any hand on the pricing, so they get to make this really clever post and look like gods. And for what I believe will probably be a really great game. The first game was fantastic. I was very impressed, and I have no doubt that this will be a phenomenal game. So they come out smelling like roses.
Ever put out a shit game?
No,
ever?
They come out smelling like roses. Xbox, however, walks out of this looking like complete incompetent, like pushovers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there we go. That's all I had on my list. So I know that you had some stuff. I guess going into media, TV, and movies segments here.
So I had one real quick game one. We don't even have to go crazy with it, but anybody that's known me for longer than 10 minutes knows out of the two schools of first-person shooter, Call of Duty and Battlefield, I'm a Battlefield guy. Mainly because combat is not an infantry-only thing. The Battlefield is a combined arms effort. And I like being able to be a truck driver if I want to be a truck driver on the battlefield. Or a tank driver or a helicopter pilot. So Battlefield did their release today of Battlefield 6's trailer, and we have not had a Battlefield campaign since Bad Company 2, if I'm not mistaken. And Bad Company 2 was early Xbox 360.
Who was behind Bad Company 2, Jay? Who was that again?
EA Dice. So I don't know what you're wanting me to say here.
Oh, never mind. I was gonna
Okay.
I was gonna work that back and tie it back to Randy because of his Bad Company game
Oh.
that he had made.
Oh yeah. So anyway, EA Dice. Yeah, man, dude, you gotta throw that up real quick. You are not wrong. Especially Bad Company 2 that had the Battlefield Vietnam DLC, which you seldom see any Vietnam content ever.
Look, all I'm saying
pretty
is that
good.
Randy Pitchford is our anchor bean. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
So anyway, they launched the trailer today. We got an all-star cast in this thing. They got an actual campaign again. So really looking forward to it. They didn't go with any super future bullshit. The multiplayer is back to class-based multiplayer instead of having to pick an actual person with a very specific skill set and a very specific set of equipment. You can just pick a class and roll with it, just like old school Battlefield. So I think back to the roots is the lesson of the day here, but looking forward to that. And that was my last gaming thing before we move on to movies. So our big thing in movies, at least to me, it might not be to a lot of people, but this is a huge deal, is So Mason has it. I'm just going to flat out say this. Alan Richardson is Batman.
I will be the more cautious and say, well, I believe that he will be the likely Batman. We did not get outright confirmation. It was just very, very heavily hinted at by James
It was
Gunn.
99.7% Alan Richardson is Batman.
It was 5 broken controllers that Alan Richardson is Batman, according to Jay.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say it. Alan Richardson is Batman. And I do know this, that Mason is super excited as I am, that if this were the case, he would be extremely happy because we're going to get the Batman that we grew up with, the big, hulking, brooding Batman that we have deserved. And not to take anything away from the only other real Batman, which is Michael Keaton. But this is going to be a legit Batman if this does indeed happen.
Yeah, I actually had this conversation with some of the commenters in the Superman video where we talked about like the Batman that we know in comics, the comic books, the animated series, the video games. He's always this massive barrel-chested guy. Even now, like they have Absolute Batman that they have now, where he's wielding like an axe. But Batman's always been portrayed in other media outside of TV and movies as this big hulking brute, just this hoss.
Yeah.
And we've never gotten that. And Alan Richardson is that. He would be the ideal that Batman. And I think it would be a really interesting dynamic and also a funny thing because it's much in the way of Superman being Clark Kent, but wearing no mask, only having so that Batman is actually not done. They are still working on it. There is gonna be a Batman 2 that is in development. I believe they actually just got a script finalized for it, but it's still separate. So it is part of DC, but is not part of the new DCU continuity. So it's outside of that.
And the other thing people got to realize, and a lot of people don't know this, the Dark Knight and Batman are two different Batmans. I feel like even though Robert Pattinson didn't call it that, I felt like he was more Dark Knighty. That film was very gritty.
It's kind of like it's the adjective game sort of thing that they would do, especially in the MCU. Like Ultimate Spider-Man was different than the Amazing Spider-Man, even if it's the same character. You know, it's still Peter Parker or this or that. Like they would always do the same thing where they would like play around here and there. But I think it makes more sense. It's less confusing in movies because obviously in movies you're going to have a much broader audience than the comics themselves. So there will be people that think that those should tie together. But obviously the Superman, the way that they're going with the new DCU, they don't tie together. But I don't want them to cut that, the Batman, as that one's called, short, because it is a brilliant piece of work. And it was sort of the epitome of the grounded approach, sort of like the last hurrah of the grounded approach for DC whenever it came to their movies. And it did great. It was fantastic. The Penguin show was phenomenal on HBO. So yeah, I'm glad that it's still going, but it's in its own pocket universe of the DCU, as it were, and does not impact it. But I'm so excited though at the potential of Alan Ritchson being Batman, because like so much like Clark Kent and Superman, how he didn't wear a mask, but nobody could tell if they were the same person. You've got Batman, who obviously does wear a mask, and Bruce Wayne, so you can't see his face. But how many 6'8" billionaires are there? Like this massive guy, and like so you've got this masked massive dude with all this technology, and then you've got this gigantic tech CEO that would have access.
That's the only downside to this movie, is I don't know how they're gonna. I mean, when he's walking around town as Bruce Wayne, people are gonna be like,
Well,
so
first of all,
Batman
Bruce Wayne does not walk around downtown, sir. He has a driver.
Once a year, he walks around downtown in an alley, at least. But
dances with the devil in the pale moonlight.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. And if you haven't seen Reacher, the 3 seasons of Reacher that he's in, when you watch it, you're going to be like, "Yep, that's freaking Batman right there." So anyway,
System agrees.
I'm super excited about the possibilities of this, and it makes you wonder who the other castings are going to be, and I don't know what those are going to be like.
Well, and one dynamic that I think would be interesting is one that you brought up before the show. You'd mentioned that your son had pointed out that Batman, if this were the case, would be bigger than Superman as far as physical size goes. And like I said, David Cornsweet's bigger than you think he is, but he ain't as big as Alan Ritchson.
No, there's very few people that are.
But so I'm sure some people would probably be upset by that. But like I mentioned, I think that would be a cool dynamic, that Batman or Bruce Wayne would be used to being able to physically intimidate people because of his size. And then he would come up to Superman and obviously initially have that feeling of superiority. And he's coming up to a guy that doesn't care how big he is. I think there's a lot of really interesting mechanics that they could play here. And I've also had some people tell me that they wouldn't want it to be Alan Ritchson because that would make him older than Superman. And I'm like, that's fine with me. That was always kind of the thing, is that he was the grizzled vet. He kind of looked down on Superman's idealism in these matters. He didn't think Superman was looking at it realistically. He wasn't willing to do the things that Batman was willing to do, even though Batman wasn't willing to kill. He was willing to do a lot of other stuff. So Batman was like, he's like, well, I won't kill. But then Superman's like, well, I won't do what he's doing. So I think having him be bigger is a cool dynamic, and I think having him be older just makes sense. It lets him be the grizzled vet. We've seen just like we don't have to see Superman crash land on Earth and see him be raised by Ma and Pa Kent. We've seen it over and over and over again. We've seen it. We also don't need to see Batman's parents get shot in an alleyway again. We don't need to see the
pearls.
I was about to say, we don't need to see the pearls fall. We don't need to see him go through the arc of all. We don't need to see it. So yeah, bring us in a grizzled vet starting off right from the gate, a Batman that knows what he's doing and is set in his ways and already thinks he's the smartest man in the room. And usually because he is.
Right. Anyway, so looking forward to that. Tonight, you're going to see Fantastic Four.
I
need to remind you of that. I don't know what your drive looks like from here, but we need to look at that. But
not too bad. Not too bad. We'll make it. We'll make it.
Okay. So I wanted to go ahead and do a spoiler-free review of a movie neither one of us have seen. I thought that would be a cool mechanic that no podcast does. And when
we're pushing the
limits,
we are moving the genre forward here.
We are setting a new needle where we're going to do reviews before we see the movie. So me and my son have these wonderful in-car conversations. That's about the only time we really talk, but because he's a teenager. But talking about what we wanted out of Fantastic Four and what we thought we might get, and based on the trailers we've seen and all the footage and the history, and
System is honored to be
Yes.
here as we move the genre forward in this way.
we're just as honored that you're here, man. Thank you very
Part
much.
of history.
for being
Part of
here.
history.
But
Live.
I just got to tell you right off the bat, much like Donkey Kong, Fantastic Four is not my favorite Marvel group of heroes. And I'd like to add that this is coming. I was talking to a guy at work today, much younger than me, 26, 27 years old. And I was like, I didn't have social media and I didn't really have games. We had, here we go. We had a Nintendo in the house, but comic books were a huge deal. Going down and getting whatever the newest issue. I can tell you for a fact, I never bought an issue of Fantastic Four. I hated them. Hated the cartoon when I was a kid in the 80s. They were like the Leave It to Beaver of Marvel. Just this happy family that goes out and saves the world and then comes back home and cooks spaghetti for dinner. Then, of course, Marvel decided to make movies, and we had the movies with Ian Gruffold and or Yoan Gruff, whatever how you say his name, and Jessica Alba, and those movies were both horrid. Chris Evans was literally the only saving grace of both of those movies, playing the Human Torch. And then we had the epic dumpster bear fire of
I don't think
Michael
those
B.
words go
Jordan.
together.
Michael B. Jordan. I was referencing a literally sea-level game with a meme. But anyway, the epic dumpster bear fire of the Michael B. Jordan, Kate Mara, whatever the shit Miles Teller guy you want to call that was a disaster. So they don't have a leg to stand on going into this movie. And now we got a movie with one of my favorite actresses, Vanessa Kirby, and some of my favorite actors of recent date because of the things they've been involved in. The guy that's playing, and I don't know his name right offhand, the guy that's playing the Thing was in Andor.
I
He was
can
great
never
in season
pronounce
one of
his
Andor.
name, but yeah, he's great in The Bear and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, he's really
Yeah.
coming up.
You should see him in the first season of Andor. Very good. And then
I'm gonna
the
watch
kid that played Eddie in one of the best scenes on
Joseph
television
Quinn.
ever. Yeah, Joseph Quinn playing Master of Puppets on the top of an RV in a trailer park was legit. So I'm looking forward to him playing Johnny Storm. But we've got the comics accurate version of Galactus this time instead of a gigantic doom cloud from space. I'm a little worried about what Silver Surfer is going to look like and how that's going to work out, other than just being a mouthpiece for Galactus, which technically that's what the Silver Surfer is as a herald. But what are your thoughts initially before you even head there?
I'm scared, Jay. I'm
I
scared.
would be too.
So
The baby trailer this week pissed me off.
So there's a lot here that I am not happy about. I'm uncomfortable with this being what they're kind of like hinging all of their sort of future bets on. I mean, they're really hinging all their future bets on Doomsday, but this is kind of what gets us to Doomsday and Secret Wars. And there's
Precursor,
so much
man.
weight on its shoulders. And like you said, it's never been done well in live action. And to start off with, they were never my favorites either. I know that they're Marvel's first family, but they're of a different generation. Now, to Marvel's credit, they are playing into the fact that they are of a different generation by putting them in this sort of neo-modern, like retro weird thing kind of timeline. Like I think, but I still, it just still seems like such a disconnect. And then one of the things that's always been trouble, and whenever they were first created, back in the Stan Lee days, and the Jack Kirby days, the concept of the superhero was still fairly new and not so well worn. So somebody being able to stretch themselves, I'm sure it probably sounded pretty cool, but it just all, and I know that he's the smartest man in the world and that's his real superpower is his intellect, but the power just, I don't think plays well on the screen of the elasticity. I just don't know how you do that and make it look cool instead of cheesy. And I see that being a thing. The fact that they are making several mistakes in one here. One is the same mistake that the Green Lantern movie made, and that is starting your franchise with the biggest villain that there is. And, okay, so you have this massive universe eating monster and you beat them in the first movie. Cool. How do you up the ante from there? Everybody else is going to be a nobody. Like where's the tension there? You can't get any more tense than that.
Even Thor waited till the third movie to do Ragnarok.
So we've got Galactus, and it's like, okay, well, that's like the big world-eating being. So like once you beat him, we're at. And then the other thing is, it's hard enough to do a team movie, period. It's even harder to do a team movie whenever you have not established the characters individually. So they're doing the Justice League approach, where, I mean, granted, they started out as a team, we know that, but they're doing the Justice League approach where we get introduced them all together. And like I said, I understand they are a team. They didn't exist separately and then come together in the comics. That we kind of are sort of shoehorned into. We have to start off with them. But it's even more harder on top of all of this to then you're introducing these characters for the first time as a group in one movie, and then in the same movie introducing another character on top of that, and that is the child. So I believe there are rumors that there will be a time skip and that the child will actually play a large role in the way that the movie goes, which would then be not a Fantastic Four film. That would be 5, if my math serves me correctly. Yeah. And I just think this is, I don't know. I want it to work for them. I think it can work. Maybe there's just a lot going against it. And what I will say is that when they bought Fox, they did so to get the X-Men back. And that was years and years ago. They should have just done the thing. They should have pulled the cord way back then and just immediately gotten the X-Men going. That's what everybody wanted. That's what we've all wanted since the Iron Man movie came out, was to have the X-Men back. We got the X-Men back. I know they're coming out after Doomsday, but that's 2027, 2028. Like we have long gestated, way too long, on getting the X-Men in here. And I don't even know if there's going to be an MCU for them to come back to by the time the X-Men show up.
So I've only got 2 more pieces of my non-spoiler pre-review. One is, I don't like the trope of saying, if you give us so-and-so, we'll leave your world alone. It's an impossible decision. And B, one, you know that they're going to choose technically the wrong decision, which is, we're not giving you our kid. So, screw
the wrong decision.
8 trillion. Well, I know, but 8 trillion.
I agreed with Joel at the end of The Last of Us.
So the other piece
done the same thing.
And while this is a non-spoiler review of a movie we've not seen, I am going to spoil Thunderbolts because it's already out in streaming. So if you haven't seen it by now, that's on you, not me. Here, I'll do this for 2 quick seconds. Bye. At the end of Thunderbolts, we had a post-credit scene where a portal opened in space, or a singularity, or a wormhole, and the Fantastic Four ship came through it into our world in our time, 2024, 2025. That's probably going to happen in this movie that you're about to see and that I'm going to see tomorrow. What are the ramifications, A, of that happening, and B, what leads to that happening? And I don't think they're going to do this, but I mean, is it a situation where they're like, we can't save you guys, we're leaving?
So here,
So
I'll-
that would be awesome, by the way. But still.
well, here's this. I can confirm none of this, and I have not heard any of this recently. So none of this is even based off of anything that has come out from anybody that's seen the movie, that the final cut or anything like that. But there were rumors that was exactly how this movie originally ended, and that's why they had to reshoot. Was that it 100% ended with them basically being like, oh, well, there's no way out of this. So they just booked it, got out of Dodge.
Hope everybody's okay.
Yeah, they basically sacrificed that universe to kill Galactus. And but they got out okay. So I guess if that's true, I guess their thought was like, but everybody's gonna be happy because they survived. Like, so I don't know. I can't confirm the legitimacy of any of that. I have no way to confirm that, but that was one of the rumors that I had heard, was that was
Wow.
exactly how the movie originally ended, tested poorly, and that's why they had to do these reshoots as recently as just like 8 weeks ago.
Fantastic Four, the first assholes.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's extremely uncomfortable. But you know what is comfortable?
Yeah.
Is
Saving
using that
15%
15.
on a hoodie or sweat set at comfort.com/hardcore.
Oh, so anyway, yeah. So have fun tonight. I don't want to hear anything because we're going to see it tomorrow night. Alex is excited about seeing it. I'm just happy he's excited about seeing a movie. But we got to move on to TV. We got a few big ones so that we can get you out of here and get you on the road. Some huge news in TV. The first one, wow, yeah. The first one is, and I want to see what your thoughts are on this. So, Netflix, and you can't get more official than that, the official Netflix logo inside of the Assassin's Creed logo.
I would say they were just heavily hinting at it, Jay.
Yeah. So the tagline right now is a high octane story about human connection through the Animus and through time.
Which is our way of saying about that summary. That sounds like the most pretentious buzzword AI generated tagline.
And my thing is this: I think this is their way of saying we're not going to tell you what time period we're using, or whether we're using a game as a basis, or if we're going to do our own story.
Well,
a bunch of things.
If we did a word association game and you told me Assassin's Creed and I gave you the first word that came to my mind, and then you were like, nope, let's try that again. You could give me as many chances as you wanted, hundreds, thousands of chances at this. And the word, or one of the words I would never give you whenever you said, tell me what you think when I say Assassin's Creed, is octane.
Yeah, I was going to say 2 words: human connection.
That one I think is more assassin. It's still a stretch, but that one's certainly more Assassin's Creed than high octane.
Right. I think they're trying to let you know there's going to be action in it, I guess, is my only thought.
I think that sounds like some executive's way of trying to say that there's going to be action, because usually when you say high octane, yes, it does mean action, but they usually at least have the good sense to include cars. Like Fast and Furious is high octane action because it's in machinery and that kind of stuff.
It's a high octane adrenaline fueled thrill ride.
Yeah.
So,
like it just doesn't fit. There you go. Ezio, the greatest of them all.
And everybody says that, and I got to tell you, and I know this is going to be
it's not the greatest of them all. The greatest one was Edward Kenway. I will say the greatest of them all is Edward Kenway. But
I love Edward Kenway, but I'm not the biggest. I know everybody loves him. I'm just not the biggest Ezio fan. I even love the settings of those games, but I'm not.
Who are you then? Are you an Altair supporter? Like, what's the?
I do. Okay, first off, I Edward Kenway all the way. Pirate, assassin, I'm in there.
Pirate's like for me.
But yeah, Altair he's way up there for me. I like him a lot. I'll also like Bayek, but I think that's more the setting than the man for me. So I'm willing to admit that. But yeah, I think they need to tell a chronological story. I'm fearful that they're not going to, that they're going to just skip around and tell whatever stories they want. And that's up to them. It's not my show.
If I were one of these executives, which obviously I'm not, But
Yeah.
if I was, one of these high octane interns that they have working on this, I would say that I would do something that I wish the games would do, and that is minimize the animus.
Yes.
Stop making that such a linchpin, because that's not the interesting story. Nobody cares. If you're gonna have the animus, at least make the second half of that game, like the whenever you're outside the animus, at least also have that be assassin. We've talked about it on the show before, where that was a missed opportunity to be able to do your assassin stuff in like modern day New York, or something like that. But if you're doing this show, just stop the animus. I would say do the show, have a compelling narrative, go through the entire season, end it on a cliffhanger, weird twist of the animus. So like the animus opening up and somebody in a clearly modern setting going or something like that, gasping for breath as the animus opened up. And then boom, all right, see you for season 2. Do that. That's it. And then maybe weave a little bit here and there into season 2, but focus on the thing that people are coming for, and that's the actual assassin's story. Minimize the animus. That's my suggestion.
Which is where the movie failed. The Assassin's Creed movie,
Yes.
that's where it failed. They spent too much time outside the animus doing exposition.
Yeah, they were like, this
And
is
it's
what the
sad.
people want to see. They want to see this
Right.
animus stuff.
Which is sad because I love the Michael Fassbender assassin. I do. I thought that was an excellent character that we got to spend almost no time with. There was literally snippets and segments of time. But yeah, I'm excited about what this show could be if they get the right people involved. Right now, I don't think they know what this show is. I think the extent of their development so far is this logo. So it is what it is. But
Resources well spent.
yeah, at least they got it out there and they know. Now here's the thing. So not to be outdone, Amazon said, you know what? We're gonna do a show on a game. I feel like I'm sound like Cartman. I'm gonna go stick my thumb in something's butter now. Anyway, we have from Amazon, not to be outdone, and we talk about this all the time. Mass Effect is coming to Amazon as a television show. It's being headed up by Casey, whatever his name is, Daniel Casey from Fast and Furious 9. But most of the other staff is from the Fallout show, which is promising. And I do like this line that's quoted from Daniel Casey. Season 1 will be adapted from the game.
I hate that.
Okay, you're obviously reading something different into it than I am, and I think
I
you're
am
reading
clearly.
it's gonna be adapted from the game, but it's not gonna be the game.
So here's
Story wise.
Here's my thing. So much like I guess we never gave our official pre-watch review of Fantastic Four. I don't think it's going to be good. I hope it's serviceable, but I am expecting it to not be good. That's me going out on a limb. And so going back here, this is what concerns me. Season 1 will be adapted from the game. Okay. So 2 things there. One, that means that are they going to try to end the game, the whole story arc in one season? Like, what about season 2? What happens on season 1 will be adapted from the game. Okay, what about season 2? Like,
That's
why
a fair
not? Oh, the
question.
show will be based on the show will be based on the game. Why is it season 1 will be adapted from the game? That creeps me out. That makes me think, yeah, we'll stick with it for one season, and then we'll do our own thing. Then we'll get Vin Diesel in here, and we'll have him really fix it up. That makes me not comfortable at all. I don't like that. I don't like the way that reads.
Well, I took the happy fun version from this and said, okay, season 1 will be the first game.
It can't all be sunshine and lollipops, Jay.
Season 2 will be the second game, and season 3 will be the third game.
It can't
And
be
season
all
4
hot
won't
chocolate
be-
mustaches every time.
Season 4 will not be Andromeda. That should have been the line. Season 4 will not be Andromeda.
that will be that's the one saving grace there. But so I don't know. I'm also
I'm not excited about casting choices, and we haven't even seen any yet. So
see,
I'm
that's
not
the one
excited
thing
about
that could, like, if they start rolling out some casting choices, that would make me feel a whole lot better. What I know this is going to open us up because anytime
Oh yeah,
you
I know
say
where you're going.
this, it's going to be, oh, you're just upset because
Yep.
X.
Yep.
But we can't not address it, and that is Femship.
Yeah,
I
shit.
am 100% certain that that's what. If I
Oh, yeah.
had money, and I had to put it on black or red, whichever one had Femship on it, that's where I'm putting my money. I bet that's and it was Mass Effect 1 and 2. It was all about the standard Shepard that you start off with, and that was I never even edited my character in
Oh,
Mass
see, I
Effect.
did.
I
Okay.
just had that standard guy because I liked the look of him. So that was my Shepard. And then out of nowhere on Mass Effect 3, they had this red-haired Femship out of nowhere that became the center of all the marketing, even though that had not been the center of the marketing or the understood lore to that point. Now,
Right.
granted, it's kind of a choose your own adventure, but I think they're going to go full Femship, and it just feels, I don't know. It just feels weird. It just feels weird. This
Yeah.
coming from this coming from the people that they had the rights to make a Tomb Raider show and they fumbled it. They had the best Tomb Raider that we could have had in I can't, what's her name, that Michael
Which one?
Fassbender's wife, that was the Tomb Raider,
You
Lisa
said it too
Vikander.
quick. Yeah.
And she would have been great, and they let her slip through their fingers on Lara Croft because they didn't get another project in development soon enough. Anyway, so I don't know. We'll see what the casting does, but yeah, so far the people that are involved doesn't give me the warm fuzzies. Anybody that's involved in the late stages terminal Fast and Furious franchise, that doesn't engender any good feelings for me. Saying that season 1 will be adapted from the game. Which game? All 3 games? Are we trying to speed run the story? Is it just the first one, and then we go off?
There was no Femship in the first game.
So unless you created it that way, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just afraid that the people here, because this is a thing that Amazon has done before, where they just sort of they make the show. And this thing that Netflix has done this as well, where they make the show they want to make by skinwalking the characters that and that's like their version of The Last Airbender, their live action version of The Last Airbender on Netflix, and their version of Cowboy Bebop, the live action version of Cowboy Bebop on Netflix, and all of those things. They make the show they want to make, and they just skinwalk the characters that you're familiar with, and it's not at all based on the property that you know and love. It's like they buy a property so that they can make a show because that property has a built-in audience. So they have this built-in audience, they think, because they purchased the rights to this property. So they think, okay, well, we've got that audience. There we go. They think of it as purchasing the audience. We just purchased this audience, so now we don't have to worry about them. Now let's make the show that we want to make to appeal to these other people, which then immediately gets rid of the audience that you just bought. And then they're flabbergasted when these things fail. That's where Fallout succeeded. But the fact that there are people that were involved in Fallout are now involved in this. Which people? Because Fallout Season 2 is coming. Are these people that weren't needed for Fallout Season 2? Meaning that they weren't really that integral and they didn't really do anything. They weren't really responsible for the success that was the Fallout show. I don't know. I've got to see more, but I am terrified, especially because this is my favorite gaming franchise of all time.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
This is the one that I am most emotionally invested and tied to. So knowing that it's in the hands of Amazon is terrifying. The same terror I have for them being in charge of James Bond, but multiplied by orders of magnitude.
I have to say too, I did watch a couple of different videos this week talking about how The Expanse proves that a Mass Effect show could work, and I agree and disagree. I think The Expanse shows that you can put a crew in a ship and have them on a ship for a whole episode inside the same space and show the dynamics of a working crew. I would actually be more excited if they told me the staff from The Expanse was
Yes.
working the Mass Effect show, because I think they do ship to ship combat and ship and space. I think they do all that great. Where I think The Expanse was weakest was when they were on the ground.
Well, and that's the biggest thing with Mass Effect is the world. It can't just be, oh, here's the story about these characters and we just
Yeah.
follow them wherever they go. Wherever they go has to feel lived in.
Yeah.
Like it's got to feel like there's stories around every corner and we're just getting snippets of it every time they go somewhere, and we become interested. We want to know more, but we're not getting more because that's not the story we're following.
Yeah.
These clues of a lived-in universe, it can't just feel like the universe materializes around them as they move throughout the world, and then as soon as they're gone, the planet ceases to exist. Like it needs to feel like it's a living, breathing world, and I don't know if they can do that.
I do think it was funny if they do nods to the fans, though. That would be great. Like if the elevator door opens up on the CIC and Shep gets out and looks at what's her name and goes, "Hey, my fish are freaking dead. Anybody know what happened with that?"
Or if they just have a conversation and then somebody's like, "I have to go," just turn and walk away.
Hey, when we land on the Citadel, I got to stop at X store. Oh yeah, that's my favorite store on the Citadel.
Did you do the thing where you do that at multiple stores? So
Oh,
you
yeah.
have multiple recordings.
Every store was my favorite store on the Citadel. So anyway, man, I thought that was pretty cool. That these two shows are in the works. Although, just like you, I am scared of what will become of two of my favorite franchises, man. Because I do love Assassin's Creed.
And let's not forget Garrus. What are they going to do to my baby boy?
My boy Blue. They better get somebody proper to do his voiceover work, because he'll be either CG or he'll be a dude in a suit. Probably Doug Jones that plays every tall, skinny dude in a suit.
Well, he is. Doug Jones is every tall, skinny dude in a suit, and he also, whenever he's the tall, skinny dude in a suit, he's also like almost very few times has Doug Jones been the voice of that character in the suit.
Right.
He's always the body. So if that's the case, just get the voice of Garrus to do the voice of Garrus.
Right. So yeah, because I heard a lot of people talking about they should get Matt Mercer to do Garrus, and I'm like, I don't know. How about getting Garrus to do Garrus?
Yeah, maybe Garrus. How about we do that? That's like making a Death Stranding movie and then not getting Norman Reedus or any of the people there, where it's like these are exact replications. Like you can't have a Death Stranding movie unless you have all of these people involved in it.
Yeah.
So much like that, if you've got the opportunity to cast the voice of Garrus, cast the voice of Garrus. He doesn't have to be the walking form of Garrus, but put him in the seat. Let him be the voice that we hear.
Also, a lot of the fan castings there's already hundreds of videos on it. Like every casting was just straight up 19 to 21-year-old Gen Zers. And I'm not saying we don't have young people in the show, but that group of characters is not super young.
No, they're battle hardened.
They're battle hardened veterans.
Especially Shepard, because that's the whole thing. Like, one of his origins that you could choose was the sole survivor.
Yeah.
The army, military hero. Like, you can't, what is he going to stroll in, not even old enough to drink, and he's the battle hardened sole survivor? Like, come on.
Yeah. Man. It's ridiculous. If it would have been 10 years ago, I'd say, because one of my favorite characters, because every time I talked to her, I thought of Helen Mirren, is Dr. Chakwas. Helen Mirren would have played an excellent Dr. Chakwas.
Or they could get the chick that's always with that voice, the crazy voice that's in that she's in The Expanse as the senator.
Shora Aghdashloo.
Yeah. Like that voice, man. She, like, anytime, like, you can immediately hear her voice. I would love to see her as a Dr. Chakwas.
Well, she's actually already in the Mass Effect game.
I know.
Tali's either mom or aunt or something in the game, which was crazy.
Yeah, we don't need to worry about that little bit though.
Yeah, true. But I'm anxious to see that too. What the casting is going to look like. But I'm with you. It can't be Fem Shep. It's got to be male Shep. So
Yeah, so man, I'm just not very positive on all this. So I don't think that Fantastic Four is going to save the MCU. I am not expecting much from Assassin's Creed on Netflix, and I am terrified of the possibility. Oh, did I say Assassin's Creed on Netflix? And I am terrified at the possibility of what a Mass Effect show on Amazon could look like.
Well, you did love the altars, though. So
I
there's
did
an
love the
upside.
altars. It is fantastic. It is phenomenal. Highly recommend it. You guys should play it. And yeah, so there we are. We will, I guess, close with that. I will then go and see the movie to then we can actually, well, next time we can actually share our real impressions of the movie. But until that time, just want to say one more time, you can save an additional 15% off on anything at comfort.com/hardcore. It helps support the show. We greatly appreciate it. And also, I know that the majority of our viewers are obviously on our videos that we post later after here, but I appreciate everybody that does watch these either after the fact or especially tunes in live. System, thank you so much for showing up and always getting involved. It means a lot. It helps us get through it, everything. And yeah, really, really appreciate you being on here and hanging out with us.
All right. Well, I guess we will see you next week.
See you guys.